right, so what we're going to do today is it's a little different than what we've done before. We're actually going to have a bit of a conversation, a little like inside the actor's studio, and instead of blue cards, I have white cards. And I'm going to ask him some questions. I'm going to call up some questions from you guys out there soon.
I'm tired of endlessly. Tired of dubbing endlessly.
Am I tired of dubbing endlessly? Never. Woo! I love to dub. But we'll get some more questions. So the questions here are going to be for our first guest, or our only guest today, and our special guest. He is he's one of the most popular voice actors working today, best known for his roles in Helsing, Ghost in the Shell, SAC, Eureka 7 and Slayer, Stride and Naruto, the list goes on. And games like Dot Hack, Ace Combat, and God of War 3. And also the thing I'm most jealous of him, Howl's Moving Castle. So, he also directs, adapts, and teaches, and let's look at a bit of his work.
Okay.
Am I in the way?
No, you're not. Go.
One girl is more worthy to live than everyone else in the entire world.
Worthy? How much is the world worth exactly? If you murder her now, how will you be saving this world? Is a world that kills little girls really worth more than her? How am I supposed to give a damn about a world that won't even tolerate the existence of my little sister? What kind of world is that? I can't protect the world. I'm not a god, or a peacemaker for that matter. If you're telling me to choose between killing my sister or protecting her, then I'll protect her as long as there's breath left in me! I'm the prince who's been missing from the neighboring kingdom. Somehow I got that blasted spell put on me. But if you still want to know how long I believed in some I can tell you this. I've never believed in him, ever. The Santa that showed up at my kindergarten Christmas festival, I knew he was fake. And I never saw Mommy kissing Santa or anything. But I have to say that even as a little kid, I knew better than to believe in some old man that only worked one day a year. Now, having said that, it wasn't until I got older that I realized aliens, time travelers, ghosts, monsters, espers, evil syndicates, and the anime/manga/fantasy flick heroes that fight said evil syndicates were also fake. What did you see? It's Luke. Luke Valentine. Luke Valentine. It's obvious that your powers are beyond even the highest category of vampire. Releasing control arc restriction systems. 3, 2, 1. Approval of Situation A recognized. Commencing the Cromwell invocation. Ability restrictions lifted for limited use until the enemy has been rendered silent.
Say hello to Crispin Freeman. I said the same thing to him this morning. All right. Okay, so let's just kind of get to the basics here. Where were you born? Where'd you grow up?
I was born in Chicago, Illinois, downtown. But strangely, I grew up sort of between worlds. Not only downtown Chicago, but when I was very young, my family got a place in Montana, and they run cattle out in Montana on our ranch out there. So as a young boy, I was sort of bouncing back and forth between downtown urban Chicago and driving tractors and herding cattle in Montana.
That explains a lot.
Yeah.
So how is it that you ended up herding cattle over here, and now and ended up as an actor and a voice actor especially?
Well,
what was your path?
The other thing that happened was that my family was very involved with the opera in Chicago. My grandfather had been a big patron of the arts and was the legal counsel for the Lyric Opera Chicago and had all the cast parties at his house. So I grew up around opera singers who had really big, loud voices and scared me. But they eventually convinced shy little me that maybe it would be cute if I were a kid in the opera, and initially I completely resisted it, didn't want to have anything to do with it. But then they sort of cajoled me into it, and it turns out I fit the costume, which is basically what you had to do as a kid. Fit the costume and be quiet. And so I worked, and I fell in love with being backstage at the opera, which, if you've ever been there, it's like a city backstage at the opera. There's elevators going up, and people walk off the street, go up, come back down, and they're Henry VIII. And you go, how did they do that? And so I fell in love with sort of making the illusion from backstage. And then I did that sort of through middle school, and then high school. I started auditioning for plays in high school and just started acting from there.
Well, how did you move into the professional world?
I moved to the professional world. I majored in theater and minored in computer science. Did I say I moved between worlds? I majored in theater and minored in computer science in college, and then went off and got a master's in acting from Columbia. So I was doing theater in New York, Broadway, off-Broadway, regionally, for basically 7 years in New York. And that's when I actually rediscovered my childhood love of anime, because there was a store down by NYU called Anime Crash, which unfortunately doesn't exist anymore, that sold anime on VHS. My God. And so I sort of rediscovered my love of anime, and a friend of mine at a theater festival caught me watching the show, and he's like, oh, do you like that Japanese stuff? And I was eating dinner. I was like, yeah, shut up, I'm watching. And he put me in touch with a studio that was dubbing it in New York. And so I auditioned for them. They said, do you have a demo tape? And I sent them a terrible demo tape. It was a radio theater play I had directed and starred in. It was like an Edgar Allan Poe story. And it was like 16 minutes. Totally the wrong thing to send as a demo. Don't do that now. But I sent it in, and they called me in for audition. And I auditioned for the show called Slayers. I got a couple little bit parts on Slayers, and then they said, hey, we're recasting one of the main characters, Zilgaddus. And I was like, oh, he's the blue guy with the rocks on his face, right? I like him. And so I came in and I tried to actually voice match the actor who had gone before me. And during the audition, the director said, what are you doing? What are you trying, what? Well, I'm trying to match him. Don't, just do it your way. And I was like, oh, thank God. Okay, let me do it my way. And they cast me, and it just sort of took off from there.
Wow. So that was your first role with Slayers.
Yeah.
Well, what's your most memorable?
I think, for me, the most memorable role is probably Tsume from Wolf's Rain. Because I had been working in New York, and it was the Cowboy Bebop dub that really made me aware of the Los Angeles dubbing scene. And when I heard the Cowboy Bebop dub, I said, that's it. That's the level I want to play at. I've been trying to do that in New York and have been having some resistance. And so I thought, I need to come to LA and play with those people. And so I did, and unfortunately Bebop was over, so I didn't get to work on that. But luckily, Wolf's Rain came along, which was done by much of the same production studio, both in Japan and here in America. So I got to work with the same people on a story that was on the same sort of really high level of quality, and it had all this wonderful mythology in it too. So it was sort of a hat trick. It was a win-win-win for me on that show, and I'm probably proudest of some of my acting work on that show.
Cool. Now, we're going to take some questions here in just a second. If you want to ask a question, I'm going to be able to take about 5 or 6. Just line up over there in front of Edward. Raise your hand, and he'll be able to help you. And I'll get to you in just a couple minutes. I just want to do that first. In terms of how long did it take, once you started to voice act, how long did it take before it became kind of a regular part of your life?
Well, it started off as something that I was doing on the side when I was doing theater. So I was doing regional theater and theater in New York, and then just to sort of support my anime habit, I would do some anime voice acting and then spend it on VHS tapes. But then after a while, it started to become more and more regular, and it became difficult because I would go out of town for a theater show, and then they'd have to try to schedule recording sessions around me. And then I realized I was really more passionate about the animation than I was about doing regional theater. And so I decided, well, if I'm going to pursue this, I need to go where it happens, with the sort of center of animation, which is Los Angeles. So when I came out to LA, that was sort of what I was committed to, and luckily I had done all this work in New York, so I walked into LA saying, yes, I do anime and I do it well. Here, check it out. And everyone went, oh, thank goodness, you're a good actor and you can match lip flap. Get in the booth. And so it happened very quickly once I got to LA, but that's because I'd had years of sort of preparation and proving myself in New York beforehand.
So was